Ted Rubin, welcome to another episode of Coffee in the Clouds. How are you?
I am great, and I'm so excited to be here because it seems like getting you onto a phone call or something like that is a lot harder than getting you on a podcast. So I might do this like every time I just want to speak to you. I'm going to say, "Hey Tom, let's schedule a podcast." Awesome. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Well, I resemble that remark, but anyway, so listen, I do this with everybody, no matter who you are. It's like Ted Rubin, who are you and what do you do?
I've got to work on that elevator pitch. So, real simply, I'm a guy that got into the digital space early on back in 1997. I was fortunate enough to start my career working with Seth Godin, kind of before he was Seth Godin.
Right.
Sitting there when he wrote some of his first bestsellers, we were both were in the office very, very early. Him because he's an early riser, me because I made the mistake at the time. I was still married, and I moved back up to New York for the gig, and I moved in with my in-laws who are like the Costanzas, and the last thing you want to be is there when they wake up in the morning. So I got a real education. First of all, understanding to keep my mouth shut and listen because Seth was brilliant.
Yeah.
And second of all, because he was just so engaging that he really welcomed conversation. So to fast forward, I've been involved in a lot of the way the web and social media has developed. I was the first was the first one to take the title Chief Social Marketing Officer when I was at Elf Cosmetics. I mean, after Elf, I was the CMO at Elf. I moved to Collective Bias and Open Sky and took on the CMSO role, CSMO, Chief Social Marketing Officer. I'm a content creator. I'm a connector. I preach about relationships. Return on relationship is my thing. I love to adopt other people's amazing things. So I got into something called No Let Up, which is something that I talk about all the time. There's no let up in life. And more recently, I've been supporting this concept of rippling. Let's ripple is that, basically every action creates a ripple effect. And it's like throwing a stone in a pond. So everything we do can affect others in a positive way. And I love that concept. I think it goes hand in hand with be good to people and return on relationship. Be good to people is another adoption I made of Chris Wittenberg's line and business and promotion of just being good to people. So that's who I am. I work with a bunch of brands, helping them build brand awareness, building relationships, making introductions, et cetera, et cetera. And I've had the good fortune to know you, Tom, and to build a relationship with you. And by the way, I will be back in New York on May 31st to June 5th, and I'm hoping we can connect this time face to face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A very short, very quick Seth Godin story. Many years ago, I'm reading one of his books on a Sunday afternoon, and at the end of the book, he actually had his email address,
Right.
right? And I'm like, I go, really? So I said to him, I said, "Oh, hey, Seth, I just finished your book, you know," and within minutes, he replied back. He goes, "Thanks, Tom," and I was like, "Is this really you, or is it?" He goes, "No, it's me." And
And
that
by,
to
and
me,
by, I know that you did because that's the way he communicates. Because he's so good at staying connected to so many people and answering
yeah,
the outreach, he's very brief.
yeah. But the point was, it was like,
Right.
how is this man at this point? He was already Seth, right? I'm
Right.
like, how could he? How is this possible? How could he? Does he walk around like with like in his hand? Like I go, how can he have the time to do this within a minute? And that always like register with me. It's like Seth Godin, man. you
You
know?
know, it's something that I was taught early on by my dad about valuing relationships and doing the right thing by people and always responding. And Seth really hammered that in at Yo-Yo Nine.
Mm.
That was a big part of what he did. I mean, truth be told, I built a sales team for him. And if we came back with an immediate sale after our first meeting, he wasn't really happy. He was
Yeah,
like, "Well, how did you get to know them at all? Do you know what their goals are? Do you know what their
yeah,
their problems are?" And he was very communicative. And, he also had one of those rules, like don't leave until you respond to everybody.
yeah. So, we had a podcast not too long ago. Well, actually, it was now. Time flies. I mean, it was a while ago, right? Um, if someone said, "Oh man, you got to meet my friend Ted Rubin," right? Why would they say that? What
That
is it that you want them to be thinking or feeling that would make them say, "Oh, you got to meet my guy Ted"?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you that it always amazes me that people actually say that. So it's a little bit of a difficult question to answer because it's a question that I often ask myself. Like, I'm very fortunate. I've got really dear friends. I've created friends at every step of my life, whether it's been a job or it was a camp. I am going, by the way, when I'm in that weekend, part of what I'm doing is going to a 50-year reunion of my sleepaway camp from all the people I went to sleepaway camp with, and you'd be surprised how many are coming. But we're very fortunate to have one of my closest buddies, who's one of my dearest friends since I was 11 or 12 years old, is great at making these things happen.
Yeah,
But um, you know, again, I ask myself that question because sometimes you look around and you say, I feel like I've been a really good friend, but why do these people love me, or why do these people want to see me? And some of what I've come up with, at least in this business realm and at events and things, is that, and this is what I'm told, is that I'm very passionate and I create energy.
mm,
I do find sometimes I'm transferring that energy because I'm so exhausted by the end of the day, even when I'm not speaking, even if I'm not emceeing, just being at events tire me out. And I think a big part of it, and the reason I don't see it in myself, is it happens on the spur of the moment. In other words, what I've learned about myself is no matter how tired I am, no matter how beat up I am, if I show up at something, I will represent myself well
yeah,
because I get fired up by the conversations, by the people. I can be at an event and be totally done and go sit off on the side and say, I'm out. Like,
yeah,
I've got to get out of here. I've got to go home or go back to my hotel. And someone will come up to talk to me. And I'll warn them when it starts, like, listen, I'm really done. And then I find myself fired up by the conversation, and they're looking at me like, well, if that's done, you know,
yeah,
I don't want to see ready and raring to go. So I'd have to say that's part of it. Another part of it is, which can also turn people off, is that my blog is called Straight Talk because I tell it like it is.
mm,
Even when I was the MC of the majority of brand innovator events for 6 years, if a marketer came on stage that I disagreed with, I'd let them know. If I thought
mm,
their latest campaign was a joke, I would professionally as I could, respectfully as I could, bring that up. If they were on stage making a statement that absolutely didn't make sense, I would raise my hand as a
mm,
part of the audience at this point and go, wait a second,
mm,
excuse me?
yeah,
Like, I can't get bread delivered at home. I'm not going to mention who said this, but it was at a brand innovators event, and it was in 2018 or 18. Like, seriously. So I think that also draws people to me because they know they're going to get the straight talk. They know that I'm going to tell them what I think. um, they know that I'm going to try to do it respectfully. If I can't, sometimes I might not. But I'll certainly couch it in, I didn't mean to be disrespectful,
yeah.
or I'm sorry I laughed, but that just doesn't work for me. And then I'll also couch it in, that's me. And one of the reasons I preach that you need to have your audience or your prospective audience as part of your thinking when you're creating a campaign or you're creating a product. Like, it used to amaze me, and I think this has changed somewhat. I wouldn't say enough,
Mm,
but it always amazed me when I'd be in a meeting with a brand and an agency about a new campaign, and it would be about selling 25-year-olds cosmetics, and there was not even a woman in the room, and all the guys were in their 40s and 50s. And I'm
mm,
like, and they'd be saying, oh, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, how do you know? And I mean, that's part of what we did at Collective Bias when I was with John, is we brought together a community of the kind of people that brands were looking to talk to, not just as influencers, which seems to be almost 100% or a big part of the thrust now.
right.
Bring these people in so they can share about your products and convince the people they influence to use it, rather than what do you think and how can we do this better?
So I'm going to ask you another question, which is similar but different to the one that I asked a minute ago, which is like if this was a corporate setting and a whole bunch of people in the conference room and they have they have a problem. They have a problem, right? And the boss goes, get Ted Rubin on the phone. Get to Why? Why are they getting Ted Rubin on the phone? What is Ted gonna do?
Well, I wish that would happen. So it was certainly happening more pre-pandemic because I was on a stage every week. So
Yeah.
my name and my persona was fresh in the mind of a lot of high-level people or people that were in those conference rooms. I can't say it's happening now. Maybe why should they say it? Because I'm going to give them a straight opinion. Because first of all, if I have no idea, I'm going to tell them I have no idea. I'm not going to make something up so I can sound smart.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell them that they're going about it the wrong way if I think they are. On the other hand, I'll also make great recommendations on who they should talk to solve that problem. I mean,
Yeah.
for instance, and sorry, just a little pitch here, but
Sure.
there's a company I'm recently working with called Been There, Done That. And their business model is problem solving for brands. And the Been There, Done That concept is that they have a community of 400 of the best who have been there and done that, who are CMOs, CSOs, chief strategy officers, who are chief creative officers, and who very quickly can get to the heart of a problem. So I'm also, again, not afraid to do that, not afraid to say you have the wrong people in the room, or your agency is certainly not going to help you with this problem, because all they want to do is deliver and collect the money that you're going to pay them. And they too many people. Okay, I'm going to stop here for a second. I'm going to back up a second.
Okay.
I write about this a lot. There were so few true brainstorming sessions going on at companies and brands and agencies because they are so guided by the person running it that I like to say there's no brainstorming in these rooms, because they come in very often with a very set format. They're given parameters of what they're talking about. Very often the person who's running the meeting or the person they report to has given them kind of what they want to hear. And then people are kind of either laughed at if they come up with ideas people don't like, or they're criticized because it's not in line with what the project was originally supposed to be. So I don't do that. I mean, unless I'm just an observer, obviously there are parameters sometimes. Come in, listen, don't get involved. But if someone's actually saying, I want you there, then I'm going to say what I think. And I'm also going to tell them very candidly to make sure they have someone taking notes or record the session, because I will probably forget what I said 5 minutes after I say it. Mainly because my mind's just running and I'm in the moment. And it's a friend of mine recently gave me really what I thought was really great advice. He said, start recording your phone calls. He said, because I get going, just like I talked about when people meet me and my passion starts flaring. And I come up with ideas that after I get off the call, I don't even remember exactly what I said, because unless I'm given the context or kind of the path to how we got there, I might not remember it. So that was a long answer to your short question.
Yeah. So pre-pandemic, right? You were doing a lot of live events. The world was certainly different, before COVID hit. And I remember the big topics were things like AI, right? That was a big topic, right? Climate change. Like, in other words, what were the topical things? What were the things, And then because of COVID, many of those things got pushed aside, like, because it wasn't right. Well, now here we are again. And it's like AI, right? AI is big, climate change is back. If your niece or nephew said, Uncle Ted, what's AI? What is this? Like, do I need to worry about this? What is your feel gut? What are your thoughts on just all things AI right now?
Well, I think you picked the wrong demographic, because I think if my niece or nephew asked me, they'd be saying, "How come you're not doing more with it?" Like,
well,
I think the audience that you're really referring to is companies, and I mean, AI is real. AI is here. It was pre-pandemic for the most part, and I am not a tech guy. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know what was really going on behind closed doors. But the AI that was available to the average marketer was not ready for prime time.
Right.
I certainly don't. I don't think that the people who tested it were doing something wrong. I just think some of them should have kept their hands a little bit more closely wrapped around it, because most of it was auto answers. I mean, I'll give you an example. 800 Flowers had an automatic bot that if you mentioned 800 Flowers on Facebook, you got a message saying, "Sorry for your problem. How can we help you?" And 9 out of 10 times, my comments were, "Wow, what a beautiful bouquet." or 800 Flowers doing a great job with this. And I would still get the same answer. And it was similar with Delta at one
Yeah.
point. And again, I give them kudos for trying. I take away a little of those kudos for letting it fly without some human interaction. My business partner, John Andrews, and I like to say that marketing will win when humans control the machines instead of machines controlling the humans. So a lot of that was going on with programmatic. It certainly has gotten better and refined the process. Programmatic used to be all over the place. You didn't know what you were buying. Now there's a lot more technology that allows you to control it as a human, and I think that's great. But back to your thing, I think AI now is ready for prime time. I think AI is at that point that it's going to move faster than any other new technology we've heard about. So last year at South by Southwest, all the talk was crypto, Web3, NFTs. If you were on stage and you didn't at least mention one of those or have it in the title of your talk, nobody was in the room. And all you have to do to get people in the room was add that to the title of your thing. And then even if you didn't talk about it, they were there. And those things should definitely be talked about, but they are early. They should be played with. They should be experimented with. People are not jumping into crypto in waves. And again, some people will differ with me because of the perspective they have, but I'm talking about general audience, average everyday people. There's still a huge amount of barriers to entry. Web3 and the metaverse, that was of course the other line. Metaverse is not here. Metaverse is in some places, but if you ask anybody that knows technology, there's not even clearly enough bandwidth to really have the metaverse that everybody's talking about. Do we all control our data? No, we don't. If you were at South by last year, every pundit was on stage saying, you now have control of your data. We don't even have close to control of our data. The difference is that AI is happening. It's happening fast. It's going to make that was a mistake to say it's going to make a difference tomorrow. It's making a difference today. I'm using AI, and I am not an early adopter. I might be an early adopter again on the screen of the whole human race or the whole country, but in social media, in marketing, in technology, I am far from an early adopter. John Andrews was pushing me for a while to start testing these things. He had to get me to learn about crypto, about the metaverse, which I did because it's really important. I would tell young people, and this is back to your question, because I would say that a lot of them might be ignoring to a degree the metaverse, NFTs, crypto, because they saw the way it went up and down, and then the crypto market got hit, and then there's all this talk about fraud, and obviously a lot of metaverse and NFT initiatives are not really flourishing at the moment, but they will. Okay, and they will be important, and you need to educate yourself about this, because I was behind the eight ball coming out of the pandemic on some of these things because I had the time and I didn't invest enough of it. AI, I don't think anybody could question. I'm using ChatGPT already. I'm using it a lot. A lot of my colleagues and people I know in the world, in the social media world and the content creation world, are all experimenting with it. It's probably going to change dramatically over the next year to 2 years, maybe even the next few months. So that's something that I think you got to jump in on. I think a lot of companies are already making a difference in what they're doing. And I think you have to keep an eye open to the dangers of AI, but I think that's true with any new technology. Have these things really made our lives better? The addiction that we have to them? In many ways, yes. In some ways, absolutely not. And now we're starting to look at that. I think with AI, we have to look at it up front and just be aware that, like anything else, look, Google's a great tool, but everything you search on Google isn't true.
Yeah.
I think that even have to be taken more into consideration with AI, because it is being used as a search engine now, and it's being used as a way to learn things. That, like anything else, one of the things I say is learn to discern. And that's probably the biggest advice I could give to young people or my nieces or nephews right now is learn to discern, learn how to check, make sure that you don't just publish what you see. And everybody should have learned that already, but now it's exponential. Like, we've all experienced that. I'm sure you, like I have, posted things, maybe particularly about climate change or politics, and somebody messaged us and said, "Hey, dude, that's not right. That's not real." Maybe we didn't look. Now I don't publish anything without first doing my research, making sure it's real, making sure the claim is actual, and I'm prepared to listen. I pay attention when I post something that I think is controversial, because I might get a note from you saying, "Hey man, I think you got to look at that again. It might not, you might not have the right take on it." And that's not you talking about my opinion. That's you talking about maybe the facts I'm using. And I think that's going to be a big part of what we do with AI right now. And by the way, I'm also referring to AI in the content realm, in the learning realm, in the search realm. AI beyond that, there are things going on that I'll never understand, that I think are probably going to start evolving incredibly rapidly, and we won't really see them happening or know they're happening, but they'll be happening behind the scenes.
Well, I like to look at things from the behavioral scientist way. Like, yeah, I'm not a coder. I am not a computer scientist. I didn't study that in college, etc. But I'm a user,
Right.
and I pay attention. I could see cause and effect. I could see, like, I'll give you an example, right? If I did not know you and I was walking down the street and I saw your shirt, right? I'd be the kind of guy that would go, "What's Ripple?" Right?
I love that.
But that's me, right? Now,
A lot of
others
people do that.
others would say nothing, but somebody else might go, "Why?" Because the shirt says "Let's Ripple." If I might go, "Why?" Well, that's it. Different, right? Okay. Different people, different response. Okay. Now, if I did see you, it says, and I said, "Hey, well, what's Ripple?" What do you say? I mean, where do you take it? Do you have the same answer for everybody, or do you look me up and down before before you answer?
Well, if it's just someone passing me on the street, I say that every action has a ripple effect, and that the things you do affect others, so do good things. That would be like a quick, and that's my thing. Now, the guy that came up with this is a guy named Steve Harper, who was a friend for years via social media and digitally and all that kind of stuff. I finally met him for the first time face to face in South by, and that's of course where I got all the T-shirts, because again, I like to embrace things that I think are really cool. And I love, just because of what you said, I love T-shirts that have messages, because it sparks conversation, because it gets people to ask. But you're 100% correct. A lot of people think it depends on what event I'm at. They think it's Ripple crypto, because there's a Ripple in crypto. There's a company called Ripple. But I explain that this is something that's around, be good to people, return on relationship, let's ripple, let's start things. I mean, talk about a ripple effect, AI. I mean, think about the ripples AI is going to create. So my answer is different depending on the audience. I mean, clearly, if it's someone walking down the street, unless they show real interest and I can see it's developing into a conversation, then I'll go further. But I got to tell you, even I wear "Be Good to People" T-shirts. You know that all the time.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I've had the majority of people go, "Oh, I love that. Wow, that's great." But I do get the people that go, "Why?" Or that think that, or assume something about me, or they go like, "Well," I've had people look at me like, "What's that all about?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Be good to people, because
Yeah.
people like yourself think maybe there's something else behind it. Maybe there's another message. Like one guy said to me, "Are you implying that I'm not good to people?" I said, "No, I'm just making a general statement that it's nice to be good to people."
Yeah. So when I think Ted Rubin, I think return on relationship.
Right.
Okay. That's my internal word association, right? So talk to us about that. What is it? Where did it come from? And why is that my thing for you?
You really want me to?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll be happy, because it's a story and you might appreciate it. But first, let me just wrap around a little bit. Return on relationship, ROR, a hashtag I started using, and there's a whole story around that, why it's not hashtag ROR, which I'm also incorporating now, but it's RONR. Simply put, it's the value that's accrued by a person or a brand, due to nurturing a relationship. ROI is simple dollars and cents. But ROR is the value, both perceived and real, that will accrue over time through connection, trust, loyalty, recommendations, and sharing. And I do my best to use it to define and educate companies, brands, and especially people about the importance of creating authentic connection interaction and engagement. And the way this came about was I was working at a company called Elf Cosmetics. And I was the CMO there, and we were building the company. They're $1 billion company now. They had 4 million, 5 million in sales when I joined them. I had no marketing budget. And I very quickly, within weeks of joining them, said, wow, we have to jump into this thing called social media. And this was 2008. And they said, oh, we've got a YouTube page. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a MySpace page. And I'm like, okay. And actually, I don't even know if they had a Facebook page yet. I went in and I shut down the MySpace space page. I started learning. And I got very lucky to meet a couple of guys, Roger Hollander and Al Sultan, who were early entrants from the branding side into social media. And at the time, Twitter was probably the biggest thing. YouTube was already clearly huge, but it wasn't even thought of in that realm because the concept of social media was so new. And I started learning about Twitter, and I kind of held everything up at the company. And then I came up with this idea of how we were going to wrap our arms around it. We became the biggest cosmetic brand on social media, ahead of all the big luxury brands, because they were all afraid to get in. And I perceived very early on, and part of this came from Roger and Oz, because they were thought leaders, or Oz was especially. Roger introduced me to Oz. And Roger, if you're watching this, nothing to take away from you, man. You are the man. But I recognized very quickly that people were building relationships here. People were engaging each other. There was no Facebook advertising at the time, or Twitter advertising. So when there was advertising, it was not received well. If companies came in there and just started saying, hey, discount here, do this, it was kind of like, hey, it was kind of the way social should still be. It was like, we're having a conversation. Why are you dropping a perfume in front of me or something? So I was very, very protective of this audience I was building. And at the same time, I discovered the mom blogger community. And I started, I met John Andrews, who was at Walmart still at the time before he started Collective Bias. And he had a community called 11 Moms. And they also convinced me that they just wanted to hear about things. They didn't want to be sold things. They wanted to learn. They were willing to share. They actually, some of them even came to me and said, let us share, because we like your product. And this was before the word influencer was even used in the marketing community. Yeah. And they were strictly bloggers, or we like to call them micro content producers. And every week there would be a meeting, and the owners of the company, a father and son, when can we start marketing to these guys? Wow, you're really growing this community. When can we give them discounts? Because they were all about discounts. And they had kind of gotten themselves into this hole where nobody would buy until they got their discount. And I was just not yet. And this went on for months. And I'm in a meeting one day, and they look at me and they go, Ted, listen, we know that you're not spending a lot of money on this, but we still need to see some ROI. Your time is involved. You've got a few people working for you that are doing this. And I just blurted out, I said, guys, it's not just about ROI. It's about return on relationship. I really didn't even know what I was talking about, other than the word relationship kind of went with return. And they looked at me, and these two guys who are all about dollars and cents, all about money, just kind of froze. They started staring at me, and they look at me and they go, return on relationship. Yeah. We want to hear more about this. And in my head, I'm going, yeah, okay. Yeah. And thank God they said, listen, we have another meeting in 5 minutes, and we got to cover a couple other things. So let's get back together next week and talk about this. And I walked out of the room, and I immediately tweeted out, it's not just about ROR, it's about ROI, it's about ROR, return relationship. And back then, I was one of the most followed CMOs on Twitter with 4,000 followers. I might have only even had 2 at the time. And I got like 20 immediately. People going, wow, I love that. Oh, that's amazing. And I embraced it. And I started doing what I still do, except it was a lot better then, because again, there's so many repeating tweets and so many ads and so much other stuff. But then there were so many really great conversations that you didn't have to curate in a private group. And people started talking to me about it, and I started talking with them, and I kind of wrapped my arms around this idea of how relationships are the key, and how building them will secure your place, and how people who care about you and your product will protect you and your product and stand up for you when there's a problem. And I started talking about things like social insurance, like the people that are in your community. And I started talking about communities, And all these people will, like, I have a policy. If somebody writes me, if somebody criticizes me dramatically on social media, or has a problem with something I post, I don't answer right away. I'm there, I'm paying attention, but I very often let the community jump in first, or people that know me, or people that follow me, who will say, "Oh, you misunderstood him," or "He didn't mean it that way," or "Ted's just speaking what he means, and he's very straightforward." And it would then kind of open the door for me to explain myself. And I tell this to brands all the time: if you build a valuable community that cares about you and each other, they will often step up. And you see this. I mean, you just saw it. You saw it with Nike back back in the day with Colin Kaepernick. You saw it now with Budweiser and what's going on in that situation. You see it with a lot of other brands when their followers, their consumers, the ones who do love them, will come up and stand up for them in their community. So that's return on relationship. And I like to say that relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become. So it's important to just not always reach out when you need something, not just ask for something up front all the time. Put yourself out to people and let them know that you're someone that will help. I mean, if you reach out to me, I'm going to reach back. If I can help you, I will. I'm not going to necessarily ask right up front what's in it for me. At some point, I might have to do that, because some people, yes, take advantage. But I like to say, do for others without expectation of anything directly in return, because your brand is what you do, and your brand or your business is what you do. Your reputation is what people remember and share.
Well, we're going to come up on time pretty soon. You know, it's really a shame that you are such a low energy introvert, but you know, got to work on that.
I'm gonna go take a nap after this. So.
Okay, so here's our way that we end these things. My little trick question: what did I not ask? What question should I have asked? What question could I ask? Here's your chance to ask and answer your own question to put a pin in today's video podcast.
Okay, you could ask what I think brands need to do a better job of. And it kind of goes to everything we talked about. I think they need to look people in the eye digitally, which means get to know who they are. All the information is there, out waiting for you. I think they've got to value relationships. And the biggest thing I've been talking about recently is building employee community. I hear a lot about employee culture. I hear a lot about the culture of a company, but I think companies need to take it one step beyond. I think they need to work very hard on building employee community, because a culture is one thing, and it's great. And there are some great cultures out there, but very often those people can recite what the company culture is, but they don't necessarily feel a real part of that company. There are some companies that do a great job of it. I think more companies have to start looking at it closely.
Wow.
Empower your own.
You're like a living energy drink.
I like to say, empower your employees and they will power your brand. Give people more responsibility. Let them respond to people. You have this, so many companies have thousands of employees, and they've got all these customers out there desperate for connection, and they don't allow their people to connect. And I think that's a mistake. You
know, it's so cool. Maybe an hour ago, we just talked on the phone for a second, say, hey, like, you know, what do we want to talk about? It's like, yeah, we'll talk, you know, like we don't need a script. We don't need anything, you know, and it's like, it's the best kind, right? It's like, let it rip, let it flow, let the conversation go where it's supposed to go. And it's like water, you know, it's like, and these are my favorite kind of interviews, you know?
Well, I'll tell you, Tom, you make it easy. You do a great job of it. And I'd be happy to do this more often, because I really enjoy it. And I love having these conversations. And back to that recommendation that a buddy made to me is that if you start recording, like, I love these because they're recorded, and now I have the video, and now I can go back and say, what is it we talked about? And a lot of my new ideas come out of these types of conversations. So thank you.
Know, the crazy thing is, literally millions of people are going to see this. Okay. I mean, I wish I could take more personal credit, but now we got, you know, Nidla and now Nadla. I mean, we're nationwide now. We're North America. We're covering all of North America, you know, but, you know, it's friends telling friends, right? I mean, I'll interview somebody that has 1 million followers on LinkedIn. It's like, on LinkedIn, like, you got 1 million followers on LinkedIn. It's like, what's up? You know, you got something going on, right? You got something going on, right? So, and then they tell their friend, and then it's like, well, their friends become our friends. It's you know what it is? It's return on relationship is what it is.
It's your turn on relationship, and it's everybody. Let's end this with let's ripple. Do something that makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not going to get you all gushy, but you're a good guy. You're a good guy. You do good work. You're paying it forward. You want others to do well. You want others to succeed. It's so evident. It's like so obvious. It's like you're on a mission. I think that's why you have the energy that you do, because you know that it's going to be a good day because somebody's going to benefit. Because you're doing something. And it's like,
there's a movie called Dave, which starred Kevin Kline, I believe.
I know exactly. It
and
was this
he took,
big. The fish was this big.
but if the movie is about him taking over the role as president because he was a lookalike for a president that got ill, but in the beginning he runs an employment agency, and he likes to say it's Monday. Everybody works on Mondays, and then he says there's no better feeling than helping someone get a job. And that's one of the things I do my best to do, but it goes to everything. If you can help someone, it's they don't even have, truth be told, and someone, oh my God, they didn't say thank you. They didn't even have to say thank you. It's like I talk about the struggles I have with my daughters. No one can ever take away what I have in my heart and the love I have for them. That's mine. I own it. It can't be removed. And that goes for everything you do for anybody. It's yours and you own it.
The big lesson I learned was, like everybody has bills to pay. I mean, Elon Musk has bills to pay. I don't care who you are. You got, but it's the way that you make the money. It's the way that you make the money. Okay. You got to make money because, we need money, right? But how do you make your money? Like, what do you do? That's really it. Okay. And the money will flow. If you're doing something that is supposed to happen, if you're doing something that is good, you know what? The universe will conspire to figure out how to get you money. I live that way. So
absolutely, Tom. I've got to run now.
Me too.
I do want to leave your audience with one last one-liner, one last mention is that a network gives you reach, but communities give you power. Wow. Networks connect, communities care. Build communities. Be the one that's doing that. Be good to people. And thank you very much, everybody.
Links to Ted will be right down here. Easy to find. Ted is right here. Ted Rubin. This was another session of Coffee in the Clouds. Take care.
This video was brought to you by
Shop now at www.tac-usa.com.